time is so much more valuable than money. If people want to be wealthy, that's what the wealthy do. They value their time.
One of the best pieces of business advice I've ever gotten in any sort of business has always been, if you can turn your cost center into a profit center, you're going to make a lot of money. Walk me through how you, because we've obviously known each other for a long time. Like I remember, even before like you had left your firm, I as well as Matt and other people were like coaching you up on the transition of like leaving. Did you have like some sort of pivotal moment that you knew like it was time to leave and do your own thing?
Yeah. For me, it was, well, first I had to do all the front end things that I need to do I suffer from analysis paralysis, and I think a lot of accountants are. And so I had to get my 6 to 12 months of living expenses. I joined a coaching program called Future Firm Accelerate, which I'm still a part of with Ryan Lazanis. I talk with you. I talk with Matt. I talk with other firm owners. I talk with pretty much anybody under the sun. I cold outreach people on LinkedIn. I did all these things on the front end, but it never led me to action of doing it. I mean, I took some like friends and family on the side for a couple $100 just to like get used to the software. But what happened was, I'll remember. So that means I had done this for about a year before I left. And my wife's just like, dude, I don't know how much more research you need to do, but you really need to shit or get off the pot. And I'm just like taken aback, right? I was just like, she was right though, right? Like how much more ready could I be to start? It's like, you talk to all your friends, you don't join these coaching programs, like you're just scared. And I was just like, I was. And so she's like, I support you. And she's like, just see what happens. And that's when I like put the line in the sand and told my firm that I was leaving at the end of fall busy season, which was October 15th. And then just whatever happens, happens. And even then, right, that was still kind of strategic because that was the best time, right? We're talking about right now where it's towards the end of the year. People are going to be looking for tax planning, tax strategy, as well as if they don't, January comes around, February, and that's when people are looking for tax professionals. So it was set up for me to succeed. And if I didn't, it just wasn't meant to be. But yeah, that was the pivotal moment. It was just somebody telling me to like, just jump, right?
Yeah.
Or lack of better word, just should get off the pot. You can read all these books, listen to podcasts, ask all these questions, but you got to just do it eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kudos to your wife too, because a lot of times, unfortunately, this is what I experienced too. Like when I bought my first rental property to when I left my job to basically any sort of thing that I ever do in life. There's so many people that'll tell you, what if this goes wrong? What if the tenant calls at 3 a.m. because the toilet's, clogged? But there's nobody in your life that's going to tell you what if it could be better than you ever imagined. And that it sounds like your wife was helping you lead into that. It's just like, man, dude, just go and do it already and start thinking about it. Because that's what I used to tell people all the time, and I still do, because a lot of stuff that I talk about is timeless. But it's like you save up you're an accountant, you're a CPA, even you're a nurse, you're a doctor, whatever. You save up a year of experience, a year of savings, and it's like, well, that gives you probably 6 to 8 to 9 months to figure out if it's going to work or not, and plus another 3 months for you to go find another job if it doesn't. But the worst case is your current reality. Like worst case scenario, you come right back to the same. Now you might not work at PwC or Deloitte or EY again, but you're going to go find another accounting firm to work for.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I'm 100% on that, is like, you definitely would need to surround yourself with people that will ask you the better question of like, what could go right instead of what could go wrong. And right, like it's like we're naturally, and like, I don't think they mean it in a way of wanting you to fail. That's just like our natural, in a way, like thought process is like in like survivor protection mode, because it's just easier to find what's wrong than it is to find what's right. And even if you say what could go right, doesn't mean you're going to succeed, but at least you'll try. And that's what I've noticed is you have to surround yourself with the right people. That's why I like to keep in contact with like you and Matt and other business owners, especially young business owners, right? Like they're so more optimistic. And it's not like we're delusional. It's just you have to think about like the optimistic side. And yes, you are going to fail at times, but at least you try. And I think that's the biggest thing because my parents don't even know I started my own firm because I don't want to hear from them. They're going to be like, you left a job that's going to pay you benefits with a secure paycheck that like we came to America to like obtain, and you're just like throwing it away. Like they still don't know. I mean, luckily it's in the same field. So I'm like, oh, I got to do tax. I got to do this. So, um, yeah. So definitely being around people that will support you and be more what's the thing? Yeah, like optimistic. It definitely helps in this journey because, as you know, right, as a business, you've definitely had some ups and downs, but overall, you probably had way more ups than you've had downs. I take it.
Yeah, and so I probably don't have it from the cultural perspective, but I actually don't think I told my parents or my wife's parents either for a while.
Right? Like
Because
it.
yeah.
What was it? Were you afraid of what they would say, or or do you think they would be like discouraging, and you couldn't like you didn't need that lack of a better word doubt or negativity since it's already challenging enough to just take the jump.
I've never actually heard anybody put it that way. Right. I've never heard anybody say that. It's like, are you fearful? Like, are you fearful that you know what they're already going to say and they're going to say that anyway? Or are you fearful of, I've never heard anybody put it that way, but to answer, yeah, probably scared that they were going to tell me that it was the wrong decision, or just like you said, you work so hard. I went to a small Christian college. We had four accounting majors in my senior year class. And
Wow.
I applied to Deloitte 27 times before I got an interview. And yeah, it's
Really?
that crazy. So that was the firm that, I wanted to work at, and to go from small Christian college to getting into Deloitte, I was the second person to ever get into Deloitte from my school. And
Dude, that's an awesome story. It reminds
yeah,
me of like
yeah.
the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, how he like applied to I think he said applied to KFC like 29 times.
Wow.
And I think he finally got in, or was it Harvard? I don't know what it was. He applied to so many random jobs that if one of them he finally got to. I think it's close to the 30th time he applied and he got it. But like that's actually like what I just listened to Alex Hormozy's one of his videos on YouTube, and his line that resonated with me was volume negates luck. Like
Hmm.
if you do things enough times, like you'll eventually get lucky, or like you'll eventually be skillful enough where like you're just gonna get it. And right, like you applied 27 times. After the 10th time, people are like, dude, just give up. Who cares? Like it's just a delay. Find another firm. But you're like, no, I'm gonna get it, and you got it. Right? Like it's almost reminds me of the story. I don't know which what it was, but there were these like treasure hunters, right? They were looking for like gold in this ocean. I think it took them 30 years and they actually found the gold. But like to
Mm.
have that optimism for 29 years, still not finding any gold in the freaking ocean. And on the 30th year, they found it. Like those are the type of people you need to be surround yourself with. In my opinion, if that's what you really, really want. But, but yeah, that's crazy. But right, you did it 27 times. You got it. And did you have goals already of wanting to start your own firm, or was it just to stay in public accounting and hopefully become a partner? Because that route's
Yeah.
obviously really alluring.
If I remember right, and it's only been a couple of years, but it seems like forever since I had that sort of vision. I can't remember if I was on partner track, but part of it tells me I think I was on, hey, work here for 4 years, make manager, go get my MBA, and then go get my MBA at like Kellogg or Chicago Booth, and then go to like C-level. Um,
Oh, okay.
I have something in me that because I used to remember looking up the cost of Kellogg tuition and it being 130 grand a year or whatever, and or $80,000 a year, and it being like, yeah, probably not. But I never had the aspirations of being partner. And I think that's the downside to public accounting is that while there are people that, say they're partner track or they get on that, only 1% of Big Four people ever make partner. So statistically, it's like you're already playing in the elite of the elite by getting into the Big Four. And for you to be able to compete with the other 99% of the elite, I mean, just making partner is going to be insanely hard. But now this ties into what we were talking about is it's just like I saw my partner who was the head of multi-state tax in the Chicago office, and it was you saw his lifestyle. And with Deloitte being as corporate as it was, or any accounting firm, you see what your boss is doing and what their boss is doing, what their boss is doing. And then you see, okay, well, in 10 years from now, here's going to be my exact job. I'm going to be bossing around these other people who have lives and families, and then they're going to be bossing around these other people who have lives and families. And then you just kind of question, like, why? And I'll never forget, I was sitting on my partner's rooftop and we were talking about it. And he goes, yeah, making partners great and everything. It's very rewarding financially, but my daughter just turned 18 and I've only been to one of her soccer games ever.
That's
Or
rough.
16 or something like that. I'm like, I don't want to do that. No amount of money in the world I think can replace being with your family, especially with your kids as when they're super young like that. So, you know, people's innate ability is to think for themselves and the amount of money that they make. But when you start thinking about your family, it's less about, oh, can I make 500K or $1 million a year, and more of just like, can I earn a living, but nobody can tell me when I have to show up to work or not, or I don't have to call off to go to my daughter's soccer game. It's things like that, that I put in front of earnings nowadays.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a little more seasoned than you are, but as you get older, time is so much more valuable than money. When I
Mm.
was younger, I probably didn't see it like that because I felt like I had so much time and didn't have much money. And I still don't have I have a good amount of money, but not like I wouldn't say like I'm so crazy wealthy. But once you have kids or you have parents that are getting older, I just turned 40. So like I'm literally statistically closer to death than I am to birth. So you're like, you think about time a little bit more differently and you
Mm.
don't want to waste that time because you're right. Like your kid, you've seen the chart where like the amount of time you spend with your kid is like up here when they're young, right? But then when they turn 5, it goes down and down and just like disappears. So like you want to spend as much time with your kids when they're young. And this is my opinion. I talked to another professional and they were like they disagreed because they said they won't remember it
Mm.
or something else. But that's my goal. And both my wife and I want to spend as much time with our kids when they're young because eventually they're going to school. My daughter, my oldest, just started kindergarten. We don't see her 8 hours, five days a week. And so we're glad we spent as much time with them as we did. And I think that should be the goal. I mean, that's if people want to be wealthy, that's what the wealthy do. They value their time. They don't value their money. Sure, they have money, but when you ask them if they would pick time over money, like, I mean, obviously, I mean, they could kind of do both, but like if push comes to shove, they would choose time over money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good that at such a your age, I feel like you're really young in that aspect to um, be fortunate enough to be able to make those decisions and also to have the foresight to see that, um, you know, money is infinite and time is finite. And I'm sure you'll definitely see that more, assuming you're going to have kids in the future.
Yeah, it goes into what I tell my clients. A lot of times people's highest ROI skill isn't what they're most passionate about. So like whatever makes you the most amount of money isn't what you're most passionate about. Because a lot of people get, technical degrees, they become doctors, lawyers, accountants, and like their highest level skill set is not, I mean, 90% of the time people don't like what they do for work. Or even if they do enjoy the work, it's like they're overworked, so then they don't enjoy it. But I always tell people if your highest income skill isn't what you're most passionate about, then the highest income skill just becomes a means to an end until you can you can have enough investments, whether it is real estate, stocks, or businesses. So then you can focus your time on what you're most passionate about. And for me, at least, I know as long as like I can align, what I'm most passionate about doing with also my money making activity, then I feel like I've cracked the code because I don't see it as work as much as some other people do. I see it as like, no, this is my passion. This is my God-given calling to serve these people. And in return, it's also my highest income producing skill. Whether it's doing like webinars or boot camps or live speaking, like it's my highest income skill and it's what I'm most passionate about. Like I'm super blessed.
Oh yeah. I feel the same way. Like I think my wife feels the same way. She's a mobile pelvic PT. And I wish I could articulate this in a way, but it's exactly kind of what you said is that like most people are in jobs that not most people. There's some people at jobs that make a really good living, but they don't like it. I just talked to a
Mm.
dentist the other day. He goes, the dentist, his kid goes same school as my daughter. He's I think 36. Most people think like dentist is a great job. They make good money, and he's burned out. He's burned out. He wants to leave, and he wants to become a real estate agent. So like even these doctors or these high level professionals where you think they make a ton of money and they think they're so happy because they make a ton of money, like they get burned out too. That's another thing I learned about like wealthy people. Like they have the same problems we do. Like
Mm.
they just have they make a little more money or they have a little more money, but they all get burned out. They don't feel like they have enough money. They have family problems. They still also get sick too. And so um I feel like our profession, at least for me, it was so great to see these people that I looked up to so much. And then once they became like regular people to me, it just like
Yeah.
kind of took a weight off my shoulder. Like I'm just searching for this pedestal of persona. And it's just like, dude, they're just like any other people. They just have a high income skill or they got lucky. I don't know if you work with a lot of like trust fund babies that just
Hmm.
money just comes in just from existing. Um, but yeah,
But
so
your doctor guy or your dentist guy, his highest income skill isn't what he's most passionate about right now.
yep.
Right. So for him to go from being a dentist to being a real estate agent, he's probably going to take a significant haircut. So he's got
Oh
to
yeah.
probably like work up some savings so that way he can, live off a lower income per year because that's what he's going to have to experience if he just becomes a real estate agent all of a sudden. Because his highest income skill is the one he's most passionate about. Um, it reminds me though what you were just talking about, and then we'll try to get into some like firm marketing and sales and things, whatever we
Yeah.
want to talk about. So a lot of people know, at least in the real estate niche, like a lot of people have read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Um, but a lot of people don't know about Cash Flow Quadrant, which is another book that he wrote, but he also came out with a board game called Cash Flow Quadrant. Um,
Have you
very
played
similar
it?
to, huh?
Have you played it?
Yeah, very similar to Monopoly.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Now here's the thing. So the for the game, for you guys that don't know, when you start off the game, everybody gets to pick a profession. So like a doctor, lawyer, teacher, accountant, architect, and each profession has an income level. It has a debt, and it has like a monthly expenses uh, pro scenario. And people don't believe me, but I used to always pick the janitor, and I would always
Oh,
win the game.
oh, why? I've never played that game.
Yeah,
I've heard of it. I've read the Cash Flow Quadrant. I'm a big fan of like Rich Dad Poor
yeah.
Dad and all those series. But like, were you just good at the game?
See, the janitor was only making 40 grand a year, but the janitor didn't have any debt. And
Oh,
the janitor also had a mindset of like he didn't need a lot of stuff to live. See, the problem with the doctor or the dentist that was making 150 grand is they had $5,000 a month in debt between car loans, student loans, credit cards, all these different types of expenses. And also their status was so high that they had to be on track or on par with their neighbors or the people down the street or other dentists. So they ended up like barely breaking even every single year, even though they were making 150 or 200 grand. And my janitor guy was saving $5,000 a year, and that's how I would always win the game, like being a janitor or a teacher, because it's not really about how much money you make, but it's like how much you keep and the mindset of just, hey, I have to live on less than I make here, and I can't allow status to to get to me because a lot of these doctors and dentists, when they do get out of medical school, they're going to want to feel like they earned something or they're rewarded. So they go and buy the big house or the nice car, and you have, $100,000, $200,000 of loans. And so I just thought it
Oh
was,
no, that's awesome. I haven't played that
yeah.
game. I actually tried to buy it. I think it's always been like sold out.
Hmm.
But I love all this stuff because it's so basic. And I think people can understand it. I think. But you remind me of these clients we had at my previous firm, or two firms ago. Two doctors, both making over 300K a year, so 600 grand household income. They they couldn't pay their tax bill. We told them about their quarterly estimates. They couldn't even pay us. They couldn't even pay their accountants. And
Hmm.
I'm just like, that's when I realized, I'm like, it doesn't matter how much money you make, like if you just spend it all. And then there's another guy, a little more blue collar, owns. Have you heard of Batteries Plus, like
Yeah.
the franchise? So he owns a few of those, and he's constantly looking for cash flowing businesses. He bought like a Papa Lock, and he's worth more than those other doctors, um, and he's not, how do you say, not flashy, and he's going to be way more successful than those doctors will be, just because of kind of what you talked about. It's like, how much do you spend to keep up with the Joneses, and how much do you save, and of course you got to save slash invest that so it can grow and things like that. But yeah, super interesting. But what for you, um, you're young, of course everybody wants to make more money, but what did you have a moment where you're like, I mean, how long were you at Deloitte? Like 2 years?
Yeah.
I mean, for you to jump, I mean, even when I was at 2 years at Deloitte, I was ready to go just to another firm. What made you realize you wanted to break off? And also, and then are you able to share that? I don't know if you're comfortable sharing why you felt comfortable jumping, why you want to jump, as well as kind of just the beginning stages of it. Cause I'm in my first year, and you are probably about 3 years ahead of me, maybe 2 years, about 3 years ahead of me in this journey.
Yeah. It was, so it's funny that they in Big Four they take time tracking very seriously, right? So everybody's like comparing how many hours they worked, and you used to have to log in. I forget the name of it, but on Deloitte they used to make you put how many hours you worked that day, and you could do it from your phone, you could do it from your laptop. But I remember the first year, and this is what's so crazy. So in the state of Illinois, you need to have you need to have 150 credits, and you need to have 1 year's of work experience or the equivalent, which basically meant if you work 2,000 hours, it's 1 year of work experience. I got that in 7 months working at Deloitte, the 2,000 hours that a normal person works over an entire year on a 40-hour work week. So the amount of hours that we were working, when you extrapolated out our salaries compared to that, it's like we were actually making less than McDonald's workers, which was
Yeah.
the joke at the time, right? And probably still is the joke today.
It's like a joke, but it's true.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's really not a joke. I mean, all jokes, there's some truth element to the jokes, but
Yeah.
um, the thing is like I was, they were turning around and charging our client $500 an hour for my time, and then they were, I was only making the equivalent of an $8 an hour salary. So that's why I was like, man, I think I can like cut out the middleman and just go right to the source of. Obviously, I wasn't going to go work for hedge funds or investment banks, but like I can go charge for my time, right? I have a CPA, I got my accounting degree, I got my finance degree, and so then I did like what most people do and just kind of just start side hustling a little bit, like moonlighting, right? And just start building up a book of business. And for me, it was I had gotten about $100,000 in net income slash revenue because it was all net income basically back then.
Dude,
Um,
that's super impressive to
on
do
the
it on the
side
side. Yeah.
while working at Deloitte full time, because I would work 60 65 hours, and then I would go do another 15 or 20 hours on top of that to make that extra money.
Jesus.
Um, and it was crazy because I told myself like, man, I put in 15 hours a week and I made more doing this than I did at Deloitte. It's like, imagine if I put my entire 40-hour work week schedule into that. And there was a pivotal moment, and I tell this story and because it's 100% true. So at Deloitte, you had to stay there for at least 2 years to keep your entire CPA bonus. So when you pass the CPA, they give you $5,000. The caveat is if you stayed at least a year, they'd give you 2,500, but you had to give the other 2,500 back if you didn't stay for the 2 years. And I was 21. I'm sorry, I was 21 months. It was 2 years from when you passed the CPA. So I had already worked there for 6 months. So my 2 years would have been, 2.5 years in the firm. And I was like
Hmm.
21, 22 months into my 25, 26 months that I needed to be at the firm in order to keep the $5,000. And I remember how big of an impact that was to me. It's like, man, I'm going to have to leave and I'm going to have to write a check for $2,500. I had to write a check for $2,500 to leave the firm, to leave. And
Oh,
like,
wow.
I was making good money back then, but it was, I was still only making 60K as a W-2. So for me to write a check to leave, that had something very mental on me. It's like that could have held me back. That would have been, oh, I'm gonna just stay the extra another 4 months so I don't have to pay this back. Oh, but then you know what happens? Like I get a raise and then I get golden handcuffs and then I get a promotion and this and that. The truth of the matter is I almost let a $2,500 check get in the way of making over $5 million since I've left Deloitte. And a lot of people have that mindset. People don't understand it's not just what you're losing, it's like what you could have made at the same time.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's a study that shows if you lose $10 like out of your pocket, it's also the same as gaining. You would have to find $50 on the ground to make up for that emotional impact. I know it sounds weird, but it's like $10 and $50. If you lost $10, you'd have to make $50 to like psychologically replace the feeling of losing $10.
Oh,
Right. And so I almost let, a $2,500 check get in the way of, not 5X, but however many hundreds of thousands of X. Right.
oh,
And
yeah.
so, but to tie it back, it's like there's always going to be that next thing in corporate where it's, oh, I'm going to stay an extra 2 months because of this or because of that. But you don't realize that the longer that you're staying, you're actually costing yourself all this other money and opportunity as well. So
Oh, wow. I
that's when I
didn't even know
decided to
you
leave.
paid. Dude, that is
Oh
awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
like to make 60 grand to have to write a check for 2,500 bucks, like
yeah.
it's like meant like you said, like psychologically it makes more sense, it seems like, um to just stay the extra 4 months. You don't have to pay back the 2,500 bucks because you're gonna be making money during that time and give a big enough promotion. But yeah, like now knowing what we both know, it's like gladly 2,500 bucks, 5,000 bucks, whatever, because I can easily make that up in the next, you know, day or two, few weeks, months, whatever it may be. It's crazy. It's such a big mindset shift, and I think I was the same way about saving versus making more money.
Hmm.
Um, but okay, so you decided you were leaving, you pay the 2,500 bucks, and so you had a decent little base of 100 grand. Um, so what took you from 100 grand to, I think, I mean, I know you shared this in your other podcast with, I think, what was that other
800,
podcast?
880, I think is what the first full year came out to be.
Dude, that's just insane. I mean,
Yeah.
did you hire somebody with? I remember you mentioned something about sales market. Did you hire somebody to do your sales market from the jump, or did
Not
you?
that first year, no. I mean, I've had social media friends and agencies that post content for me and help me with launches and things like that. Um, but no, like no real sort of, I would say, strategy. I feel like I've always been leading the charge on strategy. But one of the things that I learned is like the person who can get the customer to walk in the door makes the most amount of money in any business at all. Like, um, even if you're the CEO of the company, your job is useless if you can't get customers to walk in the door. And
Yeah.
the shift that I had is that we used to joke in college where it's like, hey, if you couldn't pass intermediate accounting, you switch over to finance. If you weren't smart enough to finance, you went and studied marketing, right? Like that used to be the joke. But I realized about a year into my business how important marketing was, um, because at that point, I think in 2022, we got on a call with, I want to say, 300 to 400 people who said no to us. And back then we were selling about a $5,000 offer or $5,000 service. And if I would have just closed an extra 20 or 25% of those, like I would have made an extra $500,000 in revenue. So it costed me 500 grand not to know how to sell and market to those people. Um, And so that's when I invested a lot of time, energy, and money into learning how to do sales and marketing. Was I realized how much money I left on the table. Now you're asking how did I go from 100 to 800 to begin with? It was really through content, posting in the Facebook groups, posting on social media, just really struck a nerve with like a lot of real estate investors. Um, and the demand was crazy. Like I would say the best tip I could give anybody that's just starting out is use other people's authority.
Oh
So
yeah, I remember you
in real
talking
estate
about
we
that.
call it other people's money, but in real life and business it should be called other people's authority because you can go on to some like if you figure out what your niche is, whether it's crypto, real estate, doesn't matter, and you go on to somebody's podcast that already has the audience, you don't have to really be vetted anymore because you've already been vetted through that person that's hosting the podcast. And so that's like the transfer of authority from the podcast host to you. And then also a lot of times they'll just clip up the podcast and give you the material to post it anyway. And so it's great that way. But that's be my number one tip of getting started is just get on other people's podcasts, pretty much borrow other people's audience. Yeah.
Well, let's maybe even bring it back even further back. I mean, or maybe because you already had a year of, I guess, experience in a way, since you've already built $100,000 little book of business. I call it little, but little compared to what you're doing now. But I get a lot of questions where people are like, I want to start my own practice. How to get clients? And they ask me how I got my clients. So when I first started, I was 4 years old. So like I built relationships throughout my whole life, and all my clients have been friends or family. And at 40 years old, you're a little bit more established. But at when you're early 20s, um, would you say that creating a Facebook group and making content on Instagram would be for a 20 something year old that has maybe 2 to 3 years of accounting experience? Or what would you ask that? Because that is the specific people that are asking me, and obviously like where they started is very different than where I started. So
Yeah.
I don't think my advice is going to be uh, applicable to them, but I feel like it'd be applicable to you.
A lot of people get this wrong, and it's because they don't have the right mindset to look at and solve this problem. A lot of people think as a marketer or as an accountant, our job is to know and understand the problems that our clients are facing. When in reality, we should just ask them what their problems are, right? Same sort of logic. You don't want to try to figure out if Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whichever one's better. Go to where your fish are already swimming. So if a lot of real estate investors are already on Instagram, go start an Instagram account and start posting content. A lot of real estate investors are already on Facebook. They love hanging out in Facebook groups. For whatever reason, they love them. So go there. Don't don't try to get creative. That's why a lot of people talk to me about community, like building communities now. And I love Facebook groups because people are already on Facebook. I mean, half of the world has a Facebook account. So you don't really want to change the modality of how your prospect or customer even interact on a daily basis. So your free group shouldn't be like a school community or a circle community or something over here. Like your free group should just be the most frictionless, easiest way for them to get into your ecosystem. And getting in your ecosystem goes into what I talk about. You want to become a person of interest at whatever it is that you do. So you asked about, how does one get started? It's you want to talk your ass off about real estate, taxes. Like you want to become the person of interest at whatever it is that you do. Like everybody in the world should know, here's who I am, here's what I do. Realtors typically do a good job of this. When your realtor or when your friend gets a new job as a realtor because he or she will post it all over Facebook. But it's true. Like you want to let the world know like what it is that you do. And then another thing that I learned through all this is that the sphere of influence that you have on your audience is very important. Sphere of influence being you post so much niche content about certain things. So for me, it's just real estate, where people will value my opinion not only about real estate tax, but also other things. Hey, where should I invest? Should I do this? Should I not? Like, I feel like sometimes I'm a psychologist sometimes when I talk to people. But the sphere of influence is saying, what's a good example? At a nightclub, what's the most important person at a nightclub? The DJ.
Maybe the host of the DJ. Yeah, you're right.
The DJ is the most important person at a nightclub. But the day after on the street, he's just another guy walking down with long hair and tattoos, right? But where does he have a sphere of influence? At that nightclub. Because at any given moment of time, in any place and space, he is not important until he gets into the nightclub. So understanding like your sphere of influence and like where you have this sort of power over is important, and it should be used, not abused, in ways to make you more money and help more people.
Oh man, that stuff just seems so basic, right? Like go to where your clients are at. Stop trying to create like come to my new store. Just like go to where they're at and just deliver value and be around other people that have influences and yeah, I think that transfer authority, I think is what you called it, is super important. It's like essentially instant testimonials. But I think that's fantastic. Yeah, I think people overcomplicate things. But I think that's super helpful for when people ask me, like, how do you start how to get clients? Because like the way I got clients is very different than somebody at a much younger age. So you went from there and you expanded. When did you, I guess even when you're creating content, I mean, Facebook is more like words, but when did you start posting on, I would say Instagram or, I mean, I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know if you post on TikTok or not, but when did you convert to make it more, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like more like authentic, not I want to say authentic, but where essentially you made it, you put a little more production behind it, I guess is what I'm saying, which I'm not even sure if it's the right word in the context of sales and marketing. But
so one more thing I wanted to say about the whole like find your tribe. If I was to open up a hot dog stand and I wanted to be a hot dog salesman, I'd spend way less time worrying about what buns I have, what products I have, do I have ketchup, mustard, relish, and I'd spend more time figuring out where I could put my freaking hot dog stand next to hungry customers, right? Forget all that other stuff. Where are people the most hungry? Because it doesn't matter what I give to them, they'll buy anything because they're freaking hungry. Same mindset. You want to go to where your prospects are already at. So if you're in real estate, it's like these Facebook groups or the local BNI, the chapters or whatever they are. Like go to where your fish are already swimming. And then you said the question was Instagram.
Well, I'm just because like obviously right now anybody like this is fantastic because everybody wants to give obstacles of like, oh, I can't, like, really, you can't create a Facebook group. It's free. Like, yes, it creates some time. Well, I don't know. It's like, just start it and see what happens. And of course, anybody can pull up their phone, start recording some stories, some reels, whatever it is. But when did you, I guess, decide to either hire somebody or start looking into like do it yourself and get more, invest in a little bit more of the marketing, whether it be is, your recording equipment, your background, thinking of what is it like, I think the hook, the content and the call to action and like a little bit more, I don't know what the word would be, like almost more formal, I guess, for the marketing. When did you hit that stage?
So when you one of the best pieces of business advice I've ever gotten in any sort of business has always been, if you can turn your cost center into a profit center, you're going to make a lot of money. So, for example, a lot of people who do Airbnbs, let's say I have 5 Airbnbs in the same area, I'm going to have a lot of cleaning expenses, right? Because they have to get cleaned. But if I turn around and I take my cleaners and charge other Airbnb hosts for me to come clean their property, now I'm turning my cleaners, my costs into a profit. Same thing with you might have admins that work at your firm or specialized people that work at your firm. Like maybe you can, instead of just billing clients, like you can also charge other people for that person's time, right? So also the way that I see it on the marketing is and this won't happen right away, but eventually you can dial it down to like, okay, if I spend this amount of money in marketing, it's going to generate X amount of dollars in revenue. which then therefore is also going to generate this amount of money in net income. And as long as my net income compared to what I'm spending is more, then I'm going to be successful. But also, what a lot of people don't think is every single dollar that you put into marketing, especially if you're not asking for anything in return, goes back to your goodwill bank. And you're just building up this huge imaginary bank of goodwill with your audience, because I have a 26,000 person Instagram following. I have not pitched on there at all. You'll never see me pitch on Instagram. You'll never see me pitch on Facebook. You might see me pitch in an email or two, one time or another. But I am building up this infinite bank of goodwill so freaking high that I never need to ask people for money, because people are naturally going to want to give me their money. It goes back into the law of reciprocity. If you give something to somebody of value, they're more likely to return it into your favor. It's like the Olive Garden study, right? With the waitresses and the mints. You've heard it before, right?
I think I understand the concept because I read like books like Go Giver and different like so I read a few books on sales and marketing, the whole reciprocity. But what's the story on the mints and Olive Garden?
They did a study and they had three different waitresses, right? And the first waitress came to the table, left them mints, said goodbye, and went back to the kitchen, right? And then they got a 10% tip. And another waitress came to the table, left two mints, and got a higher percent tip, like 13%, because the people at the table were like, oh, we're used to only getting one mint. Now we got two, so we're going to give her more money. But the waitress that made the most money was the waitress that went to the table, left the mints, went to the kitchen, and came back and brought more mints to the table. Because from that table's perspective, he or she went out of her way to provide them more value. And in return, she got the highest amount of tips. And so along with building content, like if you can architect this environment where you're just giving good will and good value, you never actually have to ask for a sale, because people are going to naturally want to work with you. Now, you should have an environment where people can give you money if they want to. We could talk about that later on, but because actually not offering them a way to work with you is a bad thing also, because what will happen is they'll go work with some other charlatan marketer, and then they'll end up never becoming your client. So it's like a give and take. It's almost like TV commercials. We spend an hour. The TV commercial is an hour. Or the TV show is an hour long, but 45 minutes of it is a show, and then 15 minutes of a commercial. Because we're programmed to consuming information like that. Like, we know they're going to show us a commercial. That's fine. We're watching the Super Bowl. We know they're going to show us a commercial. But as long as there's a perfect give take, or it should be a give ask, give ask, everybody's fine with it. So on your content, if you're going to post every day, once a week, once every day, like, only ask 2 days of a week. Don't ask every single day of the week. That's how you burn your audience through. I mean, have you ever gotten on a Cardone funnel? Or if you ever get in a Cardone funnel, you can never get out of that thing. His team will call you until like you call the police on him or something. But
dude, that is like spot on, because I'm focusing a lot of my time and energy on sales marketing just because after October 15th. But for me personally, like I consume a lot of Alex Hormozi stuff for sales and marketing. And I just watched some things that exactly what you said. It's like typically it's like a 3-to-1 give ask ratio, similar to Gary V's jab, hook, right hook, right. Or maybe it's even, he's still Alex Hormozi. I think he's like, I give on all my platforms and I never ask. He's like, I just always give the value. And then I think the ask is through his like advertisements, I guess, but like his content that he produces, he like never asks. I think now he kind of asks a little bit, or not even asks, he just tells you about it. It's like, hey, we have this workshop in Vegas. If it sounds interesting, let me know. Like, that's it. But well, yeah, what you're saying is people, this was hard for me to kind of understand until I probably read the book, The Go Giver, and also just applying it in real life. Is like, the more you give, the more you get back. It's not even this whole instant karma thing, but the ratio, I think you're spot on, right? Like, they've been doing this in commercials forever. There's a reason why these advertisements work, and like the ratio is the way it is. But yeah, sales and marketing, also we can go down a rabbit hole, but I'm assuming you listen to a lot of Alex Hormozy stuff, or is there another person that you kind of follow that I know a lot of people probably want to hear that
Yeah.
who they should start off with so they can,
Al
consume it?
Alex has been great. I always learn something when I listen to an Alex Hormozy podcast or a video. One of the things I've been really interested in lately is actually studying human psychology and persuasion. So it's very deep and it's very like it could get boring at times, but I find it very interesting. Um, so it's just persuasion, like how do people and again, persuasion in a negative context is bad. You should never have to persuade somebody to buy your thing. But sometimes people just need a little hand holding or they need like that little nudge to get them over. Because I used to have this limiting belief like, man, if I really had to coerce or like give these people some gimmick for them to sign up for my service or product, that wasn't the right thing to do. But I had to change my mindset on this because if you really believe in the product or service that you do, it shouldn't matter what type of gimmick you use to get them in there. If you believe that you could change that person's life, you do it. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so one of the guys I've been studying recently, his name's Blair Warren. He's an older guy. I don't think he hasn't published a book since 2000, 2005. One of his really best works is it's called the One Sentence Persuasion course.
Okay.
How to make the world do your bidding in one sentence. And the author's argument is, and again, before I say this, it's in a bad or negative context, this is how you build a cult, flat out. In a good or inspiring context, this is how you build a community. Because when you look at the underlying factors of like what makes up an accounting community or what makes up an accounting cult or a regular cult, they all share the same sort of values and how you're motivating and like influencing the people to follow whatever journey it is on you're on,
I think when you preface it like that, like people are going to interpret how they want to interpret. Like it could be interpreted either way. And about human psychology and persuasion, absolutely. Like it happens to us daily. Like there are people out there that know this knowledge and will either use it for good or use it for evil. And like that's on their own decision making. But
yeah,
I mean that's my opinion. I guess you can preface it like take it for what you think it is, but it can be used for in a positive context, negative context, but it's in each person's decision, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like it's so powerful that I don't know if I want to share it.
All right, well let's hold that. I mean, but the book or the course they can go look at for themselves and let them hear from the horse's mouth. But no, human psychology. I started learning more about human psychology. I don't know. Do you listen to a lot of Tony Robbins at all?
A little bit, but all the people that Tony Robbins studied from are the people that I study from.
Oh yeah,
probably so like Tony Robbins took a lot from this guy named Dr. Bandler on persuasion and sales, and because those are actually the greatest salespeople is people who don't study sales but people who study persuasion, right?
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know it. Doctor who?
Richard Bandler, his name is.
And I'll look them up. But one thing I learned about Tony Robbins is like just the 6 human needs and the human psychology and like why people are the way they are. Because I'm like a person that like wants to understand things. Just like I'm like a control freak, I guess. Right? It just needs to make sense to me. Like why would they do that? Why wouldn't they do that? And learning about that, the persuasion, the human needs, and then learning about Alex Hormozy and how sales and marketing can work. There's a book he recommended. I think it's called Persuasion by I think Richard Caldine or something like that.
Oh, Dan Cialdini.
Is that what it is? Yeah, something along those lines. But yeah, right. Like as much as we know about accounting, like there's the sales and marketing and persuasion aspect that I think people should learn.
Yeah,
I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. Like you could learn all the sales, persuasion, and marketing and get people in the door. But in our profession, you still need somebody to like deliver the work. And I think that's where we have an advantage. We're like the technical aspect just takes years to know and to learn. And then if you can learn the sales and marketing, like we become super dangerous. Like,
yeah. And that's where I think that's where I see a lot of people go wrong with like accounting firm mergers or just this person, now they have a firm is they're taking an accountant skill set with an accountant skill set and forming an even bigger accounting firm. And I don't think that's the play. The play is you want to take the unique value proposition from person A, like what is it that they can do in this world that they're world class at. So for mine, it's like marketing, right? Not that I can't run a firm, but my world class skill set is marketing. And then go compare it or go parlay it with somebody that can do the fulfillment. So it's like I can make the promises. I got Jim, and the Jim over there is going to, fulfill on the promises, right? It's like a lemon. So like the actual lemon, there's a lot of things that you can do with a lemon. You can make fruity scents. You got the lemon juice. You can make lemonade. You got the peel. I think they make like candle or they make a lighter fluid, something with a peel or whatever.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of different uses. And then you got the pit inside of the lemon. So instead of you and I splitting the lemon down in half and saying you get this half of the lemon, I get this half of the lemon, we would be better off because you're better at making lemonade. Let's squeeze the shit out of that lemon and give you all the juice, right? And then let me have the peel because I'm really good at making this thing over here that requires the peel, but I don't really need the juice. That's a good partnership. It's where you're not splitting everything down the middle in terms of like skill sets, but hey, I need this because I'm going to take this unique value proposition and go do this with it. But I also recognize that I suck at fulfillment and I need you to go but you're good at that. So I need you to go and, do that. So it's like accountants would be better off if they've adopted that mindset rather than just splitting everything down the middle.
Yeah, as I've learned through this process, accountants generally aren't the best business owners or good at sales and marketing. But what you mentioned reminds me of, have you read the book? I haven't read it either. Have you read the book Traction, or at least know like the concepts of
I
the
need
book
to, man.
So, right, like there's usually an integrator and a visionary, and like they just go really well together. You can't use it doesn't really work that well to have two visionaries or two integrators. And then the other one made me think about was the book. I think it's the book called Who Not How.
Oh yeah, that one's good.
Yeah. Right. Like all these things, right? Like all this information is just all timeless. It's just kind of how it's presented. But I'm so excited for our space in the accounting world, how it's going to become, and also the opportunity that lies in front of us. I've got to ask, I think you hired somebody. Is it your friend that you hired to do your marketing?
Yeah.
Okay. I see a lot of accountants, or maybe they're not accountants, but there's a lot of push, maybe just my feed, but helping with the sales and marketing side strictly for accountants. Do you have any advice on how to find the right one? Because I think, like we talked about, I think sales and marketing is challenging for a lot of accountants because it's not their natural ability. What kind of things would you look at? What kind of questions would you ask? And would you tell them to try something first before you go and hire these, I mean, what like marketers, specifically for accounting firms or accountants?
Eventually I'll be the marketer for all the accounting firms, and
Oh, okay.
you guys can all come hire me when I decide to do that. But any business, irrespective of accounting firms, any business in today's age, it needs three things. It needs traffic, which is marketing. It needs an offer, which is sales, and then it needs fulfillment, which is your team. And each one of those has its own specialty. Like obviously, again, the person who brings in the customer, the person who makes the customer walk through the door is the highest paid person ever. Because without anything else, the business doesn't exist. Without that, the business does not exist. Right. So that's traffic. So you need a marketer. You need somebody that has a marketing brain. You need sales because you need somebody to actually close the deal, like close on your offer, or just have a really freaking good product that people need, like accountants, or people need that, right? So it's good business to be in. And then you need fulfillment. So you need to like do what you promise, and you need to keep people around long enough. The average person stays with their CPA for at least 10 years. So the LTV on the back end, like, if you're going to charge $5,000 a year for somebody, like, just know that you're not just making the $5,000 the 1 year. Like, that's a $50,000 LTV. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is like, oh, I got to pay $500 or $1,000. I got to pay $1,000 up front to go generate a $5,000 client. Like, how am I ever going to make money doing that? It's like, no, no, no. You're paying $1,000 to generate 50 grand revenue over a 10-year span. So your cost to acquire a customer is $1,000, let's say. Let's say your profit at the end of the day, you're making 2,500 or 3 grand. So you came out ahead $2,000 by paying a marketer or paying somebody to go help you acquire that customer for $1,000 is the way that I see it.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
a challenge, I think, to accountants because we're all thinking about the money and not losing, but like trying to cut down on expenses and not thinking on the upside.
Well, and that's what I wanted to get at, but I didn't. But it's like the first thing I would ask somebody if they're looking to put money into marketing and sales is like, have you actually identified what the problem is that you're having in your business? Because again, with those three elements, traffic, offer, fulfillment, your bottleneck, it could be all three, but normally it's just two or one or two. Like if you're really good at fulfillment, normally your problem is just traffic and sales. You could be really good at traffic and sales, but be bad at fulfillment. But normally it's not all three. I mean, that or you're just a shitty business owner. But like, let's say you might think your problem's traffic. Well, let's dive into it. Or you may not think you have dude, our phone's ringing off the hook. Our calendars are slammed. Like we have a full list of clients. Great. Are they qualified leads? Because that's a whole nother story. Like the amount of accountants out there that think that they have good enough leads versus how many of them are actually qualified leads is a different story. It's like you might say, yeah, I have a lot of leads. I don't need to hire a marketer, but it's like, yeah, these are leads that are going to pay you $400 for a tax return. Did you really want them in the first place?
Oh, I think that is so key.
Yeah. If you use the wrong bait, you'll catch the wrong fish.
Yeah,
So
I think the quality is so much is a big thing that I don't think people talk about, and you hit it right in the head, right? Like, cool, you have 1,000 leads. Like, do you want all those to be clients?
Yeah, but
are any of them clients?
Because the accountants, they just have a accountant brain, not an entrepreneur like a business owner brain most of the time. So the phone's ringing off the hook. They're getting tons of emails. They don't think that they have a lead problem, but they do. They have a lack of qualified lead problems. And what's going to happen is if you run all those unqualified leads through your sales team or through you're going to get burned out because nobody's going to say no. Well, that's because they're not qualified. That's like throwing a freaking bass lure in a pond with minnows. Like nothing's going to bite. I just made that up, by the way. But you get what I'm saying. Like if you use the wrong bait, you'll catch the wrong fish. So you don't actually have a lead problem. You have a marketing problem. You got to go out there and show the entire world why you demand getting paid $2,000 for a 1040 instead of $400. You got to become the person of interest. You got to have the sphere of influence, right? You have to do all those things that we just talked about earlier to attract that type of $2,000 client instead of just picking up the phone for somebody that's not even going to pay $500.
Oh, that is so good. Like,
yeah.
I think there's that, and also the three things that you mentioned is the marketing, the sales, and the fulfillment. Some people nail it on the marketing and the sales, and they get all these clients in, and then they can't fulfill the work. And
that's a problem in itself too. I mean, that's like out of all the problems to have, that's probably the best problem to have because you got a lot of money, even though you might have to refund some of it if you don't fulfill. But like that's probably the best problem to have is a fulfillment problem because you then have the money to like hire the people. But the other way around is a lot harder. Like, especially if you're going from full-time self-employed or W-2 to accounting firm owner, it's like, how long can you last with nobody walking in the door as a customer?
Yeah. So when are you gonna launch this thing, dude?
Dude, it's not like it's so funny because people know that I'm that dude that should be doing this, but every time I look, it's like left and right, somebody's got an accounting community starting up or this, that, and the other. I want to build my tower so high first before it's like undeniable that this guy is like a world-class expert at this. And then I might go help other people do it. I'm like digging for gold right now. I'll sell you my shovel later, but I can also sell you a map to find the gold. And I can be your Sherpa to go to the gold. Hey, like here's this map. It'll show you where the gold's at, or I could just take you right to the gold. Which one do you want? You're going to pay more money for me to personally escort you to the gold, but you're going to get their more guaranteed result, right? So that's essentially what I'd like to get into in the future is like consulting for equity and just like maybe take an equity share of somebody's firm to just scale them and do marketing for them.
Oh,
So
I think that's a great play. That reminds me of, is that from Roland Frazier?
Roland Frazier, yeah. Mm.
No, I think it's key. I think there are a lot of qualified accountants that can definitely fulfill the work that want to break off, but they're so afraid of being able to find the clients. And if you can obviously prove it to them, which obviously you can, because just from what you have, that is actually, I mean, I'm not probably the best. I'm not. I already know I'm not, but some people just even having just the confidence of even reaching out to people, it might be worth it to them because I'm like, hey, I can go talk to people because I can just ask them questions and find problems because there's more than enough people out there that need help, and to have somebody fulfill it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking even, I mean, did you even think about numbers like 30/70, 80/20? It just seems like right now you could do that, or is that just take away from what you're trying to build currently, the consulting for equity part?
Yeah, I would say the time that I put into it is directly correlated with the percentage of equity that I'd get. So you can only give me 10 or 20%, but don't expect me to put in a lot of time, versus the other way around. That's actually a line out of Roland Frazier's book.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't know exactly what that would look like yet, but here's the idea with it all, because I mentioned like traffic, offer, fulfillment. The problem is you can do content for an accountant. Like you can go blow up on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. So you have all this traffic. Well, guess what? Now you have another problem. You got a sales problem. Because out of that traffic, now you have to figure out how to sell them. Because it's one thing. Remember, like I said, I had 400 leads that didn't buy anything from me. I lost out on $500,000 of revenue. I had traffic, didn't know how to sell. So then I had to figure out how to solve that problem with sales. And then even once you do traffic and sales, then you got to fulfill. I've already learned these lessons. Like I've already learned the traffic problem. I've already learned the offer problem. So, eventually what we'll do probably soon is come in and run marketing and sales for accounting firms, specifically like probably $5 million gross revenue range, and just work with them to scale them to potentially 10 million and above.
Dude, I love this story. This is what's so exciting. This is so nerdy, but like so exciting about the accounting world of like what could be, right? Like you went from working at the most prestigious firm, Deloitte, or the largest professional, and it's Big Four, right? You got that. And then within 2 years, you're 24 years old is when you started, right? Like when you left, was it 20, 25?
Yeah, I was 23 or 24, yeah.
Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So you did that. You got the goal, and then in 2 years you left to start your own firm, which is already another goal that a lot of people aspire to be. And you succeeded at that, and now you're just going to like, in a way, a different direction, even though it's still within accounting, but now you're going to a different path. And I think this story is fantastic because it just shows like how powerful accounting can be and the different pathways you can take. You can go the traditional route, go the public accounting route, and you could be really successful. You're already in there. You can start off and break your own firm. You did that. You were very successful. Now you're like, it's as whatever it is, whether it's boring or you felt like you already scaled that mountain. You're like, let me go to sales and marketing. That's kind of more my calling, your higher ROI value to your passion. You can do that. And who knows, maybe 5 years down the road, now you're like, dude, this is cakewalk. I can do the sales marketing in my sleep. Now I just want to consult for equity. I only want to work with people that I get equity into. Like that in itself at such a short period. I mean, that's all within under the age of 30. Like that's so cool. And I wish not everyone's going to have this story, but it should definitely demonstrate the what coulds or like the different pathways that people could take. Cause it's a little discouraging to me when people are like, oh, I'm stuck in accounting. It's like, I'm 24. I've done this for 2 years. I've done this 3 years. I'm like, dude, I didn't even go into accounting until I was 30. Like you're 26 years old and you feel like you're stuck. Like I went into accounting at 30 before I could even decide if I'm going to be stuck or not. Right. Like there's so many different pathways. Like the stuff that you learn from accounting can lead you so many different ways. And, I'm a big fan of just trying to help out the whole profession. And I think that's one of them, is just letting them know that like it's not lost. Like what you learn is just not lost, I guess is the main thing.
Yeah, man. No, it's super exciting. Like what I'm really trying to figure out is just kind of like what's worth my time. And because the worst thing that I can do right now is spend 5 to 10 years doing something and then looking back and being like, that's not what I am passionate about now, even though it may or may not happen. And I'm probably just thinking out loud, but it's like, to me, that's the worst thing, is like, I could spend 5 years doing something that I don't like to then go and change it. So I've just been, I haven't rolled any sort of mastermind or any accounting marketing thing out there yet, but I
But
want
it's
to. Yeah.
right. It's just exciting to know that you can do this, right? When you talk to other
Yeah.
accounting students, I feel like they'd be like super shocked, but at the same time, they shouldn't be. Like, this is what you could do. Like, you're 26.
Yeah.
I think you should be a good, great example of to other accounting students of like what could be. Um, and even the traditional, because there's a ton of people that went the traditional route, the public accounting, that are successful, um, and that's great. And there's also the path that kind of broke off on their own and stay that way, but also like the people that like, what if my passion is sales marketing? Like you can do that too. Like even after 5 years or 3 years of doing accounting, and
Yeah.
you talk about consulting for equity, that's cool stuff. They're like, I want to get into private equity. I want to get into hedge funds. It's like, well, this is similar. It's like it's like at a smaller scale, but like you get to learn about all these kind of things, because that's the complex stuff that like for me it kind of is exciting, because I don't know, you probably feel the same. Once you start doing some taxes and it's the same thing, like it's not as challenging for you anymore, right? It's like
Hmm.
you could probably do it in your sleep.
I'd agree. Well, this has
That's
been
awesome,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, this has been
Yeah.
awesome. Uh, Henry, where can viewers of the show find you at?
Yeah. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So name is Henry Huie. I'm sure you'll have it on the podcast, and find me on LinkedIn, DM me. Happy to answer any questions that people may have and along my journey. But yeah, thank you for having me
Awesome.
on here.
That's been great. Thanks.